Goedendag and welcome to PA Dutch 101. This is video 40 in our series and we'll be covering the grammar topic of the passive voice. We are nearing the end of this series of lessons and this video is what I would consider one of the advanced topics. This is a grammar topic that, in order to be truly conversational in the dialect, I guess is something, this is an extra bit to throw on to really take you to the next level, so to speak. But you will see it in writing, and you might hear it as well spoken, so I thought it was important that we have a separate lesson on the passive voice. And to be perfectly honest, I think most English speakers, if we're asked to describe what the passive voice is, they would not be able to do it. And that's okay. We use it, but I think most of us use it without even knowing that we're doing it. So let's talk about passive. Now this unit, since this lesson, since I said it is in advance, will be building on a lot of things that we've previously learned. So it is important that I'm going to reference a couple of the previous lesson videos. I would highly recommend watching those again if you do not feel that you have a strong handle on some of those topics. And you'll need them to understand passive. So what is passive? So the passive voice means that the subject of the sentence, and we've always been using the subject as the beginning of a sentence, is not doing the action of the verb. Normally we would say, Bob is buying the books. Bob is the subject, he's doing the buying. So that's an active sentence. Passive is where we take that subject and the action of the verb is being done to the subject. Instead of the subject doing the action is being done to the subject. That's what makes it a passive sentence. And I think once you see examples of this, it'll make a little more sense to you. In English, we use is or are being plus a past participle to form the passive voice. An example, a new house is being built on our street. A new house is being built on our street. Here we have our is or are, being, and past participle, built. Okay? So in this case, the new house isn't doing the action. It's the subject, but it isn't doing the action of the verb. It is receiving the action. It is what is being built. Okay? See how that works in English? Now in Dutch it works very similar. To form the passive voice in Pennsylvania Dutch, you would use the forms of wäre, which is video 23. That was future tense. Make sure you go back and check that out if you don't have a... because wäre is irregular, it doesn't conjugate normally. And the past participle, and that was covered in video 35. So those two videos I would highly recommend rewatching if you're a little shaky on wäre and forming a past participle. Because you need to know how to conjugate wäre, and you need to know how to form a past participle in order to do the passive voice. Okay. This is our typical word order that we're going to have. Subject, wäre, past participle. Okay? That's what we need to remember. An example, die Maschine wird gewaschen. Die Maschine wird gewaschen, the car is being washed. Again, the subject, the car, is not doing the washing. That would be an active sentence. It's a passive sentence, so the action is being washed is happening to the subject. Okay? That's what makes it passive. We have our form of wäre and the past participle of wäsche, wasche, which to wash, gewäsche. Okay? Another example, die Bücher wäre gelesen. Die Bücher wäre gelesen. The books are being read. Again, a form of wäre and the past tense of lese, which you read, gelesen. So again, the books aren't doing the reading. The reading is being done to the books, okay, even though they're the subject. So there's two examples of how we use the passive voice in Pennsylvania Dutch. Okay. Now, although, and I'll make note of this, passive sentences need not indicate who performs the action of the verb. Like in those last sentences, we don't know who was reading the book and we don't know who was washing the car. It doesn't necessarily matter in those sentences. But sometimes you're going to encounter sentences where you need to talk about who is actually doing the action. That person or that thing becomes known as the agent. Okay? For example, if that last sentence, the books are being read by Bob, Bob would be the agent. He is the one doing the reading. Okay? When you use an agent, or if there's an agent in your sentence, then in Pennsylvania Dutch, we have to use the preposition von. before it. In English, the books are being read by Bob. By would be our preposition in that one, but in Dutch we need fun, F-V-U-N. And also remember, fun is a dative preposition, so there's rules that accompany that. Remember, when you have a dative preposition, the noun following the dative preposition has to be in the dative case. So whatever your agent is, whether it's a person or a thing, you need to have that in the dative because it's going to be following fun. An example, Es Haus wird von meinem Nachbar wiederhergestellt. Es Haus wird von meinem Nachbar wiederhergestellt. In this sentence we have an agent, my neighbor. Now, notice that when we add an agent, it's going to come between our form of wäre and our past participle. We know from previous videos the past participle always has to be at the end. So we got to keep it there. So our agent, in this case, von meinem Nachbar, has to come in between. We have our dative preposition von, that makes it Nachbar's masculine, and it's dative, so it has to be mine. The house is being restored by my neighbor. Okay. Again, the house is the subject, but the house isn't doing the restoration. The agent, my neighbor, is doing the restoration. So therefore, it's a passive sentence. Okay. Seems like a lot. Let's try and work through some of these with ein bisschen übung, a little bit of practice. So, I have some active sentences. I want you to turn them into passive sentences. First example, my daddy kauft a machine. My daddy kauft a machine. So my dad is buying a car. Now we want to make this passive. So we want to say a car is being bought by my dad. All right? That's what we want to end up saying. Now we know that now in that case the car becomes the subject, so that's what has to come first, followed by a form of wäre. We have an agent, my daddy, so we got to work that in, and then your past participle of kaufe goes to the end. If you do all of that, you will get a sentence that looks like this. Ein Machine wird von meinem Daddy kauft. Past participle of kauf is kauft. Conjugate wäre for machine, and have our agent in there, von plus dative, von meinem Daddy. Okay, do we see? Hopefully you see how I got from this active sentence to this passive sentence. Let's try another one. Der Hund beißt der Postmann. Der Hund beißt der Postmann. So the dog is biting the mailman. Now this time we want to make it passive, so we want to say the mailman is being bitten by the dog. That's your passive sentence. Okay? So, start with the mailman, correct form of wäre. This time, der Hund is the agent, and then we need the past participle of beiße. You would get something like this. Der Postmann wird von dem Hund gebissen. Der Postmann wird von dem Hund gebissen. Again, Postmann now becomes the subject, our form of wäre, von plus our agent, in this case, dem Hund, and our past participle, gebissen, at the end. Okay. One more. Der Joe und John singen ein Lied. Der Joe und John singen ein Lied. So Joe and John are singing a song. This time we want to make it passive, so a song is being sung by Joe and John. Start with ein Lied, give the correct form of wäre, then add your agent, in this case two agents, that doesn't matter, and then your past participle, so you would get something like this. Ein Lied wird von der Joe und John gesungen. Ein Lied wird von der Joe und John gesungen. The song is being sung by Joe and John. Okay. Whew. That's passive in a nutshell. And notice, as far as we're concerned, this was all present tense passive. There are other tenses. I'm not going to be covering them in this video because in this video, or I don't even think I'm going to make any lessons on it, to be perfectly honest. You're not going to encounter passive voice a lot, and if you do, it's almost always going to be in the present tense, so I wouldn't worry too much about these other tenses. Maybe down the road I'll eventually make a video for past tense passive and so forth and so on, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, if you can take an active sentence and put it into the passive in Pennsylvania Dutch, that's all I'm really worried about. If you can do that, that is putting you up a notch, so to speak, on the language hierarchy ladder, as I like to think of it. People that can do passive voice And the next video, subjunctive, really shows advancement in the language skills. So if you can do this and feel comfortable, congratulations, that's great. Now my advice to you also to practice, create active sentences like we did there at the end, and then turn them into passive. So just come up with some present tense active sentences. That's what we've been doing in all the videos. So something as simple as, the mother is baking a cake, or my sister is driving the car. Then take those sentences and turn them into passive. A cake is being baked by my mother. The car is being driven by my sister, for example. And then put them into Dutch. Okay? It's good practice. Plus it also gets you practicing your past participles and your conjugation of vera. A lot going on here, but I know you're all capable of doing it. Just follow the rules. Okay? And access the previous videos if you need to get a refresher on either of those units. Okay? So, that's it for today with the passive voice. Bis die nächste video. Again, please feel free to write me an email at busterpa@yahoo.com. Comments, complaints, concerns, questions. I welcome any feedback. So, bis die nächste Video. Mach's gut und schwätz Deutsch.